Before start a video, please subscribe my YouTube channel for more videos. The Navy SEALs were legends, ghosts in the night, warriors of impossible missions. But lately, something was wrong. Operation after operation, the team stumbled. Targets slipped away, hostages went missing, and explosions tore through carefully laid plans. The commanders whispered about bad luck, but the men on the ground knew better. "Something's off," muttered Lieutenant Mark Harris, squad leader of SEAL Team 9. His voice was low, but the frustration was clear. The team sat in the debriefing room, sweat dripping from their brows after yet another failed op. Maps littered the table, circles and arrows marking what should have been success. "Intel was wrong again," said Ramirez, the team's demolitions expert. He slammed his fist on the table. "Every time we roll in, the enemy already knows. We're coming. It's like they're 2 steps ahead." The silence that followed was heavy. Harris rubbed his temples. He knew his men were the best in the world. SEALs didn't just lose, but lately, it felt like they were cursed. The next morning, High Command ordered them to meet with a civilian consultant. The idea sparked immediate groans. "A consultant? What are we, corporate suits?" Ramirez scoffed. "Probably some desk nerd who's never even heard a bullet whistle," another grumbled. But orders were orders. When the door opened, the SEALs froze. Standing there was a woman, late 20s, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun. She carried no weapons, only a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Ross," she introduced herself, her voice calm but steady. "Cyber forensics and behavioral analysis. Command brought me in because I think I know why you're losing." The room erupted with scoffs and disbelief. Harris leaned back, arms crossed. "Lady, with all due respect, we don't need a lecture. We need solutions." Evelyn met his glare without flinching. "Good. Because I didn't come to lecture, I came to win." For the first time in weeks, the SEALs were curious. The SEALs sat around the briefing table, arms crossed, waiting to be impressed. Evelyn set her laptop on the table and tapped a few keys. Instantly, the screen lit up with maps, data charts, and red markers that pulsed like heartbeats. "These are your last 7 missions," she began, her voice steady. "And these red markers? That's where you were ambushed, or where the intel failed." Ramirez snorted. "We already know where we got ambushed, Doc." Evelyn didn't flinch. "What you don't know is the pattern." She pressed another key, and the markers shifted, aligning along a single route that snaked through hostile territory. "Every failure ties back to one source. Someone is feeding the enemy your playbook down to the minute." The room went silent. Harris leaned forward. "You're saying we've got a leak?" Evelyn nodded. "Not just a leak. A ghost in your comms. Someone's been intercepting your encrypted transmissions, flipping your advantage into theirs. That's why they're always waiting." The SEALs exchanged uneasy glances. The idea cut deep. For warriors trained to be the best, the thought that their defeats came not from lack of skill but betrayal was almost unbearable. "How do we stop it?" Harris finally asked. Evelyn's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up layers of code. "You let me in. You let me trace the signal. And when I find the source, you cut it off at the root, but—" She paused, looking each man in the eye. "It won't be easy. Whoever's behind this knows your moves as well as you do." "Maybe better." Ramirez leaned back with a skeptical grunt. "And you think you can outsmart them?" Evelyn allowed herself the faintest smile. "I don't think. I know." Something in her tone, quiet but absolute, silenced even the skeptics. For the first time in weeks, Harris felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this woman could give his men the edge they needed. 3 nights later, the SEALs prepped for a high-risk raid in the desert outskirts. The target, an enemy weapons cache, hidden in a ruined village. Normally, the mission would be routine. But after weeks of failures, tension hung thick in the air, and this time, Evelyn Ross was coming with them. She wasn't in combat gear, but wore tactical black with a slim comms headset, her laptop rigged into the SEALs systems. Harris had argued against bringing a civilian into the field, but Command insisted if her theory was real, they needed proof under fire. On the helicopter ride in, Ramirez muttered, "Can't believe we're babysitting a hacker." Evelyn didn't look up from her laptop. "Can't believe you've lost 7 missions in a row. Guess we're both surprised." The SEALs chuckled despite themselves. Even Harris cracked a grin. The Black Hawk touched down silently, rotor wash, whipping sand into the night. The team fanned out, weapons raised, moving like shadows. Evelyn stayed close behind Harris, her eyes locked on streams of encrypted data scrolling across her screen. "Movement?" Harris whispered. "Not yet," she replied. "But they're listening. I can see the pings." The team advanced, breaching the first building with swift precision. Empty. They moved to the next. Still no hostiles. Harris frowned. Too quiet. Then Evelyn's screen lit up red. "They know you're here," she hissed. "They're pulling your coordinates straight from your radio chatter." Almost on cue, gunfire exploded from the rooftops. Bullets chewed into the sand, sparks flying off stone walls. "Contact left!" Ramirez roared, returning fire. The SEALs dove for cover, unleashing controlled bursts into the dark. Evelyn ducked behind a crumbling wall, fingers flying. "They've got a backdoor into your comms. If I can spoof the signal, I can throw them off." "Do it!" Harris barked, firing a burst that dropped a gunman from the rooftop. Evelyn's code spilled across her screen. The enemy chatter she intercepted was clear. They thought the SEALs were retreating south. A smile flickered across her face. "They're moving the ambush line," she said breathlessly. "You've got a window! Flank north now!" Harris didn't hesitate. "You heard her! Move!" The SEALs shifted, ghosting through the alleys with lethal precision. They caught the ambushers mid-relocation, hitting them from behind. The fight was short and brutal, SEALs versus disoriented militia. The result was inevitable. Minutes later, the village was silent, the weapons cache secured. For the first time in months, they had won. Breathing hard, Harris turned to Evelyn. "Well, Doc, looks like you just saved our asses," she exhaled, tucking the laptop under her arm. "Told you. I don't think. I know." For the first time, the SEALs looked at her not as a civilian, but as one of their own. The desert raid was a success. The SEALs returned to base victorious, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. For the first time in months, they felt like themselves again. But Evelyn wasn't celebrating. She sat in the comms tent long after the others had gone to the barracks, her eyes fixed on the code still running across her laptop. Something wasn't adding up. When Harris came looking for her, she didn't even glance up. "You ever wonder," she murmured, "how deep the leak goes?" Harris frowned. "You said they hacked our comms." "They did," Evelyn replied, her voice tight. "But hacks leave fingerprints, IP routes, digital trails. I followed the signal." "And?" Her hands stilled on the keyboard. She turned the screen toward him. Lines of code highlighted in red traced back not to some insurgent base, not even to foreign soil, but to a secure server in Norfolk, Virginia, the heart of U.S. Naval Command. Harris's jaw clenched. "That's impossible." Evelyn's voice dropped. "It means someone on the inside is feeding them, someone with clearance." The implications hit Harris like a punch. For SEALs, betrayal from within was the unthinkable. Evelyn leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "Whoever it is, they know your playbook because they write it. Every mission you lost, it wasn't bad intel, it was sabotage." Silence stretched heavy between them. Outside, the base was quiet, the desert night cool and still. Harris finally broke the silence. "If you're right, this goes way above my pay grade." Evelyn shut her laptop with a snap. Then we don't tell command. Not yet. We find the ghost ourselves. Harris studied her for a long moment. He had seen bravery in many forms. Men charging through fire, brothers dragging each other to safety. But the steel in Evelyn's eyes was something different. At last, he nodded. All right, Doc. Let's hunt a traitor. The next morning, Evelyn stood in the SEAL's war room, a map projected on the wall. Harris and his men leaned against the table, watching her work. We can't just accuse someone in command, Harris said flatly. We'd be shut down before we got a word out. Agreed, Evelyn replied, her tone sharp. Which is why we give the traitor something to bite. She tapped a key, and a new operation appeared on the screen. A raid on a supposed insurgent safe house near the mountains. The SEALs exchanged glances. They'd heard nothing about this mission. That's because it doesn't exist, Evelyn said, reading their thoughts. We'll feed this op through the usual channels, encrypted like always. If the enemy shows up waiting for you, we'll know who leaked it. Ramirez cracked his knuckles. And if they don't, then we just eliminated one suspect pool, she said simply. Harris gave a sharp nod. All right, ghost hunting it is. 2 nights later, SEAL Team 9 deployed to the safe house. Evelyn stayed back at base, eyes glued to her laptop, monitoring every line of data. The team moved silently through the rocky terrain. Moonlight spilled across jagged peaks, the silence broken only by the crunch of boots on gravel. Still nothing, Ramirez muttered. Stay sharp, Harris warned. If she's right, we'll know soon enough. Minutes ticked by. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark, its walls half collapsed. Empty. Then Evelyn's voice crackled in their earpieces. Heads up, I've got chatter. Enemy units moving. Fast toward your location. 5 trucks, 30 fighters. The SEALs stiffened. Copy that, Harris growled. Positions. The team scrambled into cover, weapons ready. The trap had worked. Too well. Through her feed, Evelyn tracked the digital fingerprints racing across her screen. The leak had gone active, relaying the fake mission within minutes. But as she traced the signal, her stomach dropped. It didn't just route through command. It narrowed down to a single terminal. Captain Ellis Monroe, Harris's superior officer, the man who had vouched for his team countless times, the one person Harris trusted. Her voice trembled as she spoke into comms. Harris, it's Monroe. He's the ghost. The silence that followed was heavier than the mountains themselves. Then Harris's voice came, cold as steel. Figures. All right, Doc, we've got company. Time to spring the second trap. The rumble of engines grew louder as headlights cut through the darkness. Enemy trucks screeched to a halt, and fighters poured out, rifles flashing in the moonlight. Contact. Front! Ramirez barked, opening fire. The SEALs unleashed a wall of precision gunfire, every shot measured, every burst controlled. But 30 against 6 was no small fight. Grenades exploded against the rocks, shattering stone into shards. Harris ducked behind cover, barking orders into comms. Push left! Ramirez! Cover fire! The team moved like a machine, but the enemy kept pressing. Back at base, Evelyn's fingers flew over her keyboard. Monroe's signal was already trying to mask itself, rerouting through layers of false addresses. If he buried the trail deep enough, they'd never prove his betrayal. No, she muttered, sweat beading on her forehead. You're not getting away that easy. She dove deeper into the code, locking onto his terminal ID, snapping screenshots, encrypting data. Every keystroke was a race against time. If Monroe realized she was tracking him, he'd erase everything. On the battlefield, Harris's earpiece crackled. Evelyn, we could use good news about now. Working on it, she shot back, barely keeping her voice steady. The SEALs pulled back toward the ruined house, laying traps as they retreated. Claymores detonated in blinding flashes, cutting down swaths of fighters. But still more came. Then Harris made a call. Ramirez! Roof! The big man nodded, hauling a rocket launcher onto his shoulder. He fired. The rocket screamed across the night and tore through the lead truck. Flames erupted, painting the mountains in orange. The fighters hesitated. That moment was all the SEALs needed. They counterattacked, sweeping through the chaos with ruthless efficiency. By the time the smoke cleared, the ground was littered with silence. The SEALs stood breathing hard, battered but alive. In the comms tent, Evelyn finally leaned back, triumphant. Got him. Every keystroke, every signal. I've got proof Monroe's been feeding intel for months. Harris's voice came through, grim but steady. Good. Because when we get back, he's not going to see us coming. For the first time, the ghost had a name. And soon he would face the warriors he betrayed. Back at base, the SEALs moved through the compound like nothing was wrong. Harris had ordered it. Monroe couldn't suspect they knew. But Evelyn? She couldn't fake calm. Her laptop now held the smoking gun, logs, transmissions, even encrypted conversations where Monroe gave coordinates in exchange for money and influence. It was airtight. She glanced around the comms tent, every shadow suddenly menacing. Monroe was still in his office, a glass-walled room that overlooked the hangar. From there, he had watched Harris's team for years, protected them, praised them, lied to them. Now he was the wolf in command. Harris entered the tent quietly, his expression unreadable. Doc, you ready? Evelyn nodded, sliding a hard drive into her pocket. This has everything. Once I send it to Oversight, Monroe's finished. But Harris's eyes hardened. Oversight won't be fast enough. Men like Monroe have friends. He'll erase you before you hit send. As if on cue, Evelyn's comms screen flickered. Then it went black. Her heart lurched. He knows, she whispered. Across the compound, Monroe stepped out of his office, 2 military police at his side. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with suspicion. Dr. Ross, he called, his voice smooth as silk. I need a word. Evelyn's pulse raced. Harris put a hand on her shoulder. Play it cool. Don't let him smell fear. She swallowed hard, forcing a steady step forward. Captain Monroe, something wrong? His gaze bored into her. You've been very busy, spending a lot of time on our systems, digging in places you don't belong. Behind him, the MPs shifted their grips on their rifles. I was just patching vulnerabilities, Evelyn said carefully. After last night, I figured... Last night, Monroe interrupted, his smile tight. Yes. Remarkable that you survived an ambush of that scale. Almost as if someone warned you. Harris stepped forward, his voice like gravel. Or maybe we're just that good. Monroe's eyes narrowed. For a moment, no one moved. Then his comms buzzed. He raised it to his ear, listening briefly before smirking. Well, he said softly, it seems the truth will surface sooner than I thought. Until then, I'll be keeping a very close eye on you. He turned sharply and strode away, MPs trailing him. Only when he was gone did Evelyn exhale. He's on to me. If we wait too long, he'll bury everything, and me with it. Harris's expression was grim. Then we hit him first. Tonight. The base was quiet that night, but Evelyn couldn't sleep. The hard drive with Monroe's betrayal burned in her pocket like a live grenade. Every creak of the compound made her flinch. Certain Monroe's men would come for her. In the barracks, Harris gathered his SEALs in a tight circle. No laughter now, no banter, just cold, silent resolve. Monroe won't wait, Harris said. He'll make his move before dawn. That means we move now. Doc, you ready? Evelyn nodded, though her hands trembled. The evidence is solid. But if he catches me before I transmit it? Ramirez grinned grimly. Then we make sure he doesn't catch you. They split into 2 teams. Evelyn and Ramirez went to the comms hub, Harris and the others to Monroe's office. The hub glowed with blue light as Evelyn powered the secure uplink. Her fingers flew over the keys, encrypting and transmitting the files straight to naval oversight. 5 minutes, she whispered. Just 5 more. A voice cut through the silence. Too late, Doctor. Monroe stood in the doorway, pistol raised. 2 MPs flanked him, weapons leveled. His smile was cold, snake-like. I should have known, he said softly. A civilian tearing apart years of work. Do you have any idea what I've built? The alliances? The fortune? And you think you can destroy it with a keystroke? Ramirez stepped forward, rifle aimed. Drop it, sir! Monroe laughed. You wouldn't shoot your commanding officer, but Harris's voice came from behind. Try us! Monroe froze. Harris and the rest of the team had entered silently, weapons trained on him. You sold us out, Harris said, his tone lethal. Brothers died because of you. For the first time, Monroe's mask cracked. Rage flickered across his face. You think Oversight cares about you? Your tools, expendable. I gave your enemies information because it paid better than your loyalty ever would. Evelyn's screen beeped. Upload complete, she whispered. It's over. Monroe's eyes snapped to her. Desperation twisted his face. He lunged, gun aimed at her chest. Crack! A single shot echoed. Monroe staggered, eyes wide, then collapsed, his pistol clattering across the floor. Harris lowered his smoking rifle, his face unreadable. No more ghosts. The MPs dropped their weapons, realizing the truth was out. Evelyn stared at the screen, where transmission successful flashed in bold. Monroe's empire of betrayal was finished. The SEALs had their honor back. But more than that, they had her. And from that night forward, Evelyn Ross wasn't just the woman who saved them. She was one of them. The sun rose over the desert, painting. The sky in shades of fire and gold. The base was alive with whispers. Monroe's betrayal had spread like wildfire. By dawn, Naval Oversight had dispatched investigators. By noon, Monroe's network was dismantled. For the SEALs, it was more than a victory. It was redemption. Evelyn sat outside the barracks, sipping coffee from a battered tin mug. She was exhausted, hair messy, eyes rimmed with dark circles. But there was a calm in her chest she hadn't felt in years. Harris approached, his usual stern face softened by something rare. Respect. He held out a patch, SEAL Team 9's insignia. You earned this, he said simply. Evelyn blinked. I'm not military. Doesn't matter, Ramirez called from behind, grinning. You're family now. The other SEALs echoed him, a quiet murmur of agreement. For warriors who trusted no one outside their own, those words meant everything. She held the patch in her hand, her throat tightening. She had never gone to war, never pulled a trigger in combat, but she had fought. Her battle in her own way, and they had accepted her. Weeks later, Oversight offered Evelyn a position. Not as a soldier, but as something just as vital. A civilian strategist, analyzing comms, hunting traitors before they could strike. She hesitated only a moment before saying yes, because now she understood something the SEALs had known all along. War wasn't just fought with guns, it was fought with trust, with loyalty, with courage in the darkest places. And sometimes it was won by the woman no one expected. The SEALs went back to their missions, and every time they stepped into the fire, they knew one thing for certain. They would never lose again. Because somewhere behind the screen, Evelyn Ross was watching. The ghost hunter. The woman who helped SEALs win the impossible missions. They were the Navy SEALs, America's finest. But mission after mission ended in disaster, and no one could explain why. Morale was broken, lives were lost, and defeat felt inevitable, until she arrived. Dr. Evelyn Ross wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained for combat. But her discovery revealed the unthinkable. The SEALs weren't losing by accident. They were being betrayed from within. What followed was a race against time, a fight not just against enemies on the battlefield, but against a ghost hidden inside, command itself. With courage, brilliance, and the trust of the men who once doubted her, Evelyn turned the tide. This is the story of the woman who helped the SEALs win the impossible missions.